Hey, it's curious. I want to answer I want to read something that someone gave me as a reply to a really old video in the second part, and I just want to read it out of context of what they were answering. I didn't mean look at my answer that I might have wrote 3 or 4 months ago or whatever, or I'm not naming the person or anything. I just want to friggin' read the comment as a standalone question and answer that. Okay, so I'm not trying to be disingenuous. I'm just saying that this is out of context, everything, but it's interesting as a standalone question. So I'm going to read it that way and answer it because that's what I want to do, and that's why I'm telling you up front. So there's no hinkiness about is this context? Is this out of context? Is this person frigging? It's none of that. It's just friggin' me reading it as a standalone question that I want to answer without the context of what I was saying before or what they were saying before. Okay? Yeah. Alright. So, what I say. Let's see. Okay. And part of the LGBT issue is that they are born this way, and so long as they don't do harm, why should they have to make a choice contrary to how they feel? Okay, fair enough. Let's talk about that. I think, basically, that the only problem I have with homosexuality, you see, this is hard because there's a certain nuance to this that makes it a two-part answer. And I don't want to be disingenuous about how I feel about this, but there is a pretense of how I feel about it personally and how I feel about it in the realm of how it should be treated as a issue of culture. In other words, how should laws affect it? How should it be established within regulations and mandates and suppositions in court of law? Things like that. Public opinion, yada. Okay. So, what that would be was that, let me read this again and see what I'm talking about. Okay. Why should they have to make a choice? Well, ideally, I used to hold, let me answer. I used to hold to the idea that, I was a social conservative. In other words, even though I was an atheist and secular, I was a social conservative in that I believed culture should have been regulated by law. Should be a regulation. In other words, there should have been social engineering on a conservative census. At least on social issues, not economic issues. Well, see, there's economic issues that are like a social issue because it's not just dimes and cents. It's things that to do with money and people and status and things that I'm all quite progressive upon. As far as frigging what I consider age, health, and wealth, people's economic status and earning potential and stuff, I'm all quite progressive on that. I consider healthcare an economic issue because it's to do with your status and how well you are being cared for, and that's money in a capitalist society. How much can you pay? Which is really kind of realistic about medicine, because medicine in our high-tech society is becoming predominantly a matter of cost. You know, this new procedure, this new thing, you know, it's expensive. It's predominantly expensive. And it just little things that might make a difference. And age. Well, okay, now age might sound like a social issue strictly, but if you kind of think about it, age also has a lot to do with money, because at the far end, when you're old, it's the kind of care you'll get from a retirement home, or what will happen to you when you're older, and then, you know, what will happen to you after life, your post, your burial and stuff like that. That's to do with money and status. Your health care is to do with money and status. You know, your health is in living. All that's to do with age is a lot to do with wealth, because everybody's trying to worry about retirement and, you know, working and trying to make a goal and moving up in life. And so it is a lot to do with money in a capitalist society. Okay, so now this all comes back to the homosexual question, but I look at it, when you're dealing with race, gender, male or female, and none of this transgender, you know, spectrum of gender stuff, I respect it a little bit, but come on, you know, that's something in your own mind, or it's something that's very rare, that, you know, you're this mental hermaphrodite, or whatever the correct terminology is, that I don't know, because it's so distinct and so it's completely out of the mainstream. You can respect it, but you can't be hogtied by it. And I think it's personally made to be partially frigging empowering in that sense, is that it's frigging exclusive to anyone else who doesn't know the exact terminology of the LGBT network of pansgender, transgender, something gendered, friggin', you know, what the proper term is that they can't even agree on themselves, you know. So that's fine, but, you know, don't use it as a frigging harangue or noose to frigging try to hang me with. No. You know? I mean, if you want understanding, you've got to give understanding. And if you really want understanding, you got to give me the friggin' guidebook to it, you know? I mean, it's not all on me when everyone is quarreling and swirling and just getting their empowerment from their complexity of terms. You know, you got to meet us halfway in any case. So now, oh yeah. Okay, so you know, well, okay, so there's race, gender, and then, well, let's talk about orientation for a second, because I have a different view about orientation. I think orientation is strictly overblown. What we need to worry about is human sexuality. And I think that orientation should be freaking shrunk back down to its proper perspective in the gauntlet of questions of the issues of human sexuality. Let's straighten out a little bit of these things with transgenders and sex negative, you know, lesbians that think that men are freaking trying to take over when because they're just surgical freaking men in disguise, you know. And yet the other side saying, no, they were always born that way, so now they're freaking matching their body to themselves. So, you know, someone who's straight, or God, I hope so, freaking, you know, after being infected by all this gay, you know, you say you can't catch the gay, I'll get to that in a minute. But freaking all this stuff, all this indoctrination, indoctrination is just normalization of freaking things, and that's why freaking I believe half the people who are freaking gay are maybe bisexual, maybe going in and out of it, or maybe just stuck in the status quo. That's what's wrong with the homosexual movement. Statism. It's wrong. It's wrong when conservatives do it. It's wrong when progressives do it. And a lot of progressive things is about statism, as much as they want to cry and complain about the conservative counterparts. You're not free to be free if you're freaking binding me. And it's just true. You can't freaking say, it's the problem of having to say, well, my words are being said freely because I believe in free speech, but my words are denouncing you, but by taking my words away that criticize you or define what criticism versus slander is, you're taking away my rights. You see, there's a duality to that, and people just don't want to accept that, or they just dismiss it or something, and I think that's wrong. So I'm left with that paradox too, a very difficult question to answer, is in this infinite variable of yin and yang, of freaking the duality of the nature of free speech versus free rights, and which freedom is right, positive or negative rights. In other words, the right to have your liberties protected from another, or the rights to have the freedom to have your liberties not censored by your government. And I put the first definitely above the later, except when it's economic, because I believe you need an economic shell to build material capital to change it into social capital. Although empowerment, entitlement are the dangers of that in the greatest of degrees. Do you understand what I'm saying now? I hope so, because I pretty much got that one right. I like to think so. And that's the whole thing with freaking... Okay, I'm just going to cut it down, and I hope I don't get flagged or something, but this is just to put it out there, balls out, and just say it without endorsing a biased or prejudiced or homophobic or any of that bullshit term view. I want a society where, within limited degrees, and without forming a consensus or statist or collectivist group or societal presence, like what they say about white society, white dominant society. Well, I don't want any type of authoritarian dominant society, except rule of just law, which we all roughly agree upon, and not. So, but I'm just going to come out and say, I don't believe that a group of freaking a sign should say no darkies or homos. I don't believe in that. But I do believe that they should have the right to say, we reserve the right to serve who we wish, and that might not be you, and you should have and the person should have the right to tell people, if you don't like it, go somewhere else, and hiring and firing much the same. But it can't be freaking signs on the wall. It can't be segregated openly. So, and if it's done repeatedly, then the person who does this has to bear the burden of keep repeating it every time, because they can't officially have it sanctioned in law or in statism. You see, people could be free to do what they want, but they can't be free to take away from other people's freedom what they want. So people could be gay all they want, but The problem is the authoritarianism of it and the rights to freaking have legislation that protects them. In other words, I used to be freaking yes on 8. I call it yes on 8, get it straight. But then I went no on 8, not because I support the homosexual agenda or the normalization of LGBT rights. It's just that I believe that while I have the same thing of saying, oh, look at them faggots, I believe they have the same right to frigging go out and frigging have cruises and Mardi Gras parades and everything else. But now when someone threatens them with violence or something else, then that's wrong. That's crime. It's just like when that Matthew Shepard got thrown up against the fence. That was crime. If it wouldn't have been frigging a gay man, it would have been a black man. If it would have been a black man, it would have been a woman. If it would have been a woman, it would have been a midget. You know, it would have been somebody that friggin' these goons would have friggin' taken out and friggin' thing. And no, there wouldn't be the crying and the little tears. That's statism. That's wrong. Anything to do with race, gender, or sexuality that either promotes statism or social engineering, conservative or progressive in an authoritarian sense, in a cultural sense, when people should have a free expression of cultural values and relativity to their point of view, is wrong. It's wrong. Wrong. And I don't care. Now, what I do care about is frigging taking away so many frigging civil rights, that you lose social justice and it becomes a deregulated collectivist state. Because remember, I'm against collectivism. So you paradoxically have to have some positive rights in social questions. And although I am an economic progressive, you also have to be careful of entitlement and empowerment. Entitlement and enablement. Because those are facilitators to decay in the system, which is meant to freaking help people progress. You have to have a smooth transition from a point where you jump off from being assisted, very smooth step over to where you're doing it on your own, without having to worry if you backslide, you won't lose home or house or anything, especially if you get sick or something. Now, I don't know if this makes me a frigging prejudiced frigging socialist or something, and I don't consider myself a Nazi and shit because I don't believe in authoritarian culture, even a conservative collectivist one, like frigging nationalists are. It's just not frigging economic anymore. It's socially Marxist and they're socially nationalists. And it's worked that way into our society, and we're still having frigging fights between commies and fucking Nazis, and it's crazy. And it's just, I don't know. I've really come to the point where I wish everyone their freedom, their justice, and their liberty. And however that works, but I want a dynamic society with a dynamic culture and a limited infrastructure so we can rebuild. We've got wooden frigging sewers from the 1860s for major cities. Things need to be fixed because all that money is something else that could have been building like children's homes or soup kitchens or supplementing frigging low-cost farmers or bringing projects that would have frigging brought work to a person who had a small business who could have frigging hired somebody in these damn asphalt jungles to make a better living and break up the cycle of poverty and violence. And that's what's really important. not someone's color of their skin or who they're friggin' wang banging in the friggin' bathroom. Well, they should be in the bathroom. There should be low-cost hotels if they want to do that kind of thing. Like Japan. You know, yay Japan. I don't care. You know, where it works is what it works, you know. So let it work. And if people want to friggin' go friggin' have a friggin' Caribbean cruise where they're friggin' doing the Wang Tango all the way around the deck with the friggin', you know, salsa band, and friggin' let them salsa friggin' booty pump all they want. You know, I don't care. You know, you can friggin' have the hit cruise friggin' boat falling behind them, laughing at them falling in the ocean or something. I don't know. Well, not that they fall in the ocean, but, you know, drunk gay guys trying to do the limbo and friggin'... Oh, never mind. Anyway, I probably get myself in trouble, but it's just freaking ridiculous anyway around. I don't really care what people do, but, you know, I'm just not going to fall into that thing of saying, well, just stop shoving it down my throat! You know? Damn! I mean, really? I mean, everything is so freaking homoerotic, you can't say shit anymore. I mean, I look at shit where people used to freaking call each other gay and kiss and shit, and it's like, is that gay? Was that gay? What the hell is with that shit, you know? Anyway, I'm just ranting now. I don't know. I don't want to get in trouble, but I want free speech, free thought, and free expression. And I don't want somebody just telling me, don't do that. I want to hit on somebody in the elevator. But if the other person hits on me, I'm just going to say, I want the right to say, no thank you, sir. I don't want to stop on that floor. Okay? I know if this is upsetting to anyone, I'm sorry. But you know, yeah. That's about all I got to say about anything.